the global media in the Western world, you have a lot of media. So I guess what they're saying about Israel in the New York Times is not like what they say in Wall Street Journal. And what they say, so you got all kind of stories. There is this new thing, the hip thing is to hate Israel. Obviously, the liberal thing to do in American colleges and all this stuff. Yeah, they really don't like us. They see us, they completely accept the narrative that the Palestinians are selling. It's very easy to accept that because we have uniform, our fighters, and they have to deal with a civilian people, and it's never a good picture. So they automatically don't like us there, and it's very hard to explain them the complexity of the situation. Also, there is a lot of misinformation, disinformation. There's this map of how Israelis try to take the land more and more. It's like 1948, 1967, which is not connected to history. Not just taking these eclectic maps and put them. They don't mean anything. And this is how we took over this land. It's a hoax. It's really easy. It is a hoax. And people just buy it because it was on the TV, so why should I believe that? Or it was in internet, I read it in the newspaper. So people believe everything they read and everything they hear, and to them it's very hard to explain to them the complexity. But usually when they come here, pretty fast. When they come pretty fast, they do understand the complexity. Only if they have really strong agenda against Israel, so they come here and they, But if you open-minded enough and you come here to Israel, you do understand that things are complicated. It's not good and bad. I'm not claiming that Israel is perfect and Palestinians are evil. This is most certainly not what I'm claiming. I'm claiming the situation is gray. We try to fix it. The world is not helping. It's complicated to fix because we all have our dreams and we all have to see what we're willing to give up. But I think if they are coming here, it's getting better. On the media, depends on what media do they see us.
Well, first of all, I think that majority of viewers, even in Europe and in North America, still kind of see us all as camel jockeys and things like that. Well, most people don't really tend to get really deep into what's going on, and they all see us as the same group of
Desert
somewhat
dwellers.
brown people fighting each other on something, but more seriously, if we're dealing with the elites, with people who are the decision makers in general, or the people who are influencing the decision makers, it's very similar to what Danny said. Generally, they see Israel usually in very exalted ideological light. If you are pro-Israeli, you usually see Israel as a solution to all problems and as generally the best country in the world. Which we aren't. We're just another country. We love our country, but it doesn't really mean that we're much better and we're the only protection the Western world has or anything like that. And on the other hand, of course, Palestinians are evil and are bad. Or, which is more common case, we would say that the Palestinians who are weak and occupied and are fighting against the powerful conqueror and things like that are the good side, and we are the apartheid, whatever we are dealing with apartheid. Racist and Zion-Nazis and things like that. These people, both sides, are not really easy to convince, if at all. Usually they write and read, all the positions that they read and they publish are the ones that are strengthening their own position. They are not really open to negotiate with the other side, and usually you can't really convince them. You could see that on Democratic National Committee, the Democratic National Convention, when Sanders supporters burned Israeli flags, which has absolutely nothing to do with American politics or with the nomination process, but yeah, because
they didn't have the American flags there.
Well, yeah, perhaps, but the point is that you're generally you'll find somebody bad, and you'll put everything you have. Like every bitter position that you have, you'll put it on them, and Israel is a good thing, good place to start. So these misconceptions are usually, it's kind of difficult to convince them these people that they're wrong, if they're very ideological. But some people are just like influenced by what they see or what they read. A lot of people would say that real news are not in the news media, and you have to read on the web, and then you just go to some, I don't know, some blogs, and you read that, and you're sure that you understand what's going on around the world based on these blogs, despite the fact that they may have very little connection to reality. And when you come here, as Danny said, you usually have, if you're more open-minded, you usually have an understanding that the situation is much more complex, and that you can't really decide that these are the good guys and these are the bad guys, and that's it. So these are like three main, I think, groups. The bigger group that generally sees as these people fighting, the less convinced groups that are tending to think to some direction, but they don't know enough or don't know a lot general, and the ideological groups that you can't really convince at all by now, because for them that's a God-given truth, whatever they believe in.
Well, I had, I think, an up close and personal view of how Israel is perceived, because I worked on campus in California, and granted it was 6 years ago, but I don't think it's much different than what it used to be. And the campus had groups like Students for Justice in Palestine, SJP, which, right off the bat says what they think about the situation. And so I think I had an up close and personal view of what others think of us, of how Israel is perceived and Palestinians are perceived and the conflict is perceived, because I worked on a college campus in California, of all places. And I think when a group is called Students for Justice in Palestine, it kind of right off the bat says what they think about this area and the existence of Israel. But there were really deep conversations on campus that made me really believe in the next generation of more involved people. And I was part of an initiative called the Olive Tree Initiative, which discussed the conflict with Israelis and Muslims and Palestinians and Jews. And one of the things I liked about them is that the word peace was not in the mission statement. It was not in the manifesto. The point was having conversations, not solving problems. However, I think the way that Israel is perceived today is very dangerous, because there's a very conscious effort to separate Jews from Israelis. I think this is what happens now, because it's not PC to say bad things about Jews. Jews are what you see in Holocaust movies, and they're not those people. But if you can separate Judaism and Jews and the Jewish ethnicity from what Israel is, then you get a very thin, very narrow, and not so positive view of what Israel is, which is everything that we've said. Too white, oppressive, colonial, and whatever it is, have no religious basis anymore because you took apart their Jewish basis, have no ethnic basis anymore because you took it out of their identity. And the Palestinians have a fuller, a rounder identity of people who are in touch with their religion, of people who are in touch with their land, of people who are constructing their ethnic identity. And that's what I felt people saw when they looked at us. They saw Israelis and they saw Muslims, but they didn't see Jews anymore. And it scares me because I view this as a new kind of antisemitism. I see this move to separate the Jewish identity from the Israeli identity, and it scares me because I see this as a new kind of anti-Semitic views in the world. You clean out the Israeli picture from anything Jewish, and then you most definitely can talk about Israel as the bad people in a very one-sided conversation.